Have you ever wondered what the world would be like if the Earth was flat? Not a sphere, not a globe, but a gigantic, flat disk floating in space. It's a fun thought experiment, and it's an idea that has been around for centuries. While science has long proven our planet is round, let's dive into this fascinating what-if scenario. What would life actually be like on a flat Earth? Let's break it down, piece by piece, and explore the wild consequences. First up, the force that keeps us all grounded. Gravity. On our round Earth, gravity pulls everything toward the planet's core, its center of mass. That's why, whether you're in New York, Sydney, or at the South Pole, down is always toward the center of the Earth. But on a flat Earth, this would get really weird, really fast. If we assume the source of gravity is at the center of this flat disk, then sure, if you were standing right in the middle, things would feel pretty normal. Gravity would pull you straight down. But the moment you start walking away from the center, things would get strange. The pull of gravity would start to become more and more horizontal. Imagine walking towards the edge. It would feel like climbing an increasingly steep hill, even on perfectly level ground. The trees, the buildings, everything would be leaning inwards, pulled toward the center. At the very edge of the disk, gravity would be pulling you sideways, making it impossible to stand. You'd have to cling to the ground just to avoid being pulled off into space, or more likely, back toward the center. Simple things like playing catch would be a nightmare. Throw a ball, and it wouldn't arc gracefully back down. It would curve sideways, pulled by that central gravity. Building stable structures would be an engineering impossibility anywhere but the very center. The world would literally be on a slant. Now, let's think about our vast oceans. On a round Earth, gravity pulls water equally from all directions, creating the spherical shape of our planet and keeping the oceans distributed nicely across its surface. On a flat Earth, this would be a catastrophe. With gravity pulling everything toward the center of the disk, all the water on the planet would be drawn there. Over time, the oceans would drain from the edges and pool into one massive, central ocean. Imagine a single, gigantic puddle in the middle of the world. The edges of the flat Earth would become arid, lifeless deserts. Continents near the periphery would be completely dry. All marine life would be forced into this one crowded, central sea, leading to an unimaginable ecological collapse. The complex system of ocean currents, which regulates our global climate, would simply cease to exist. The world's coastlines, as we know them, would vanish. What about the simple rhythm of day and night? Our 24-hour cycle is a direct result of our spherical Earth spinning on its axis. As it rotates, different parts of the planet face the sun, giving us daytime, while the other side is cast in shadow, giving us nighttime. How would this work on a flat Earth? Well, it wouldn't. At least not in any way we'd recognize. For the entire disk to have a day-night cycle, the sun would have to behave very strangely. Perhaps it would move in a circle above the flat surface, like a giant spotlight. If the sun hovered over the center, the middle of the disk would be in perpetual daylight, while the edges would be locked in eternal twilight or darkness. Time zones would be a meaningless concept. The sun would always be at the same height in the sky for some, and for others, it would never rise. The constant baking sunlight in the center would scorch the land, while the cold, dark edges would be frozen wastelands. The beautiful sunrises and sunsets we enjoy would be replaced by a sun that simply appears and disappears, or just shrinks and grows in the distance. Next, let's consider the seasons. We experience spring, summer, autumn, and winter because our Earth is tilted on its axis by about 23.5 degrees as it orbits the sun. This tilt means that for part of the year, the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, giving it summer, and 6 months later, it's tilted away. Bring in winter on a flat, stationary Earth. This mechanism is completely gone. There would be no tilt, and no orbit in the same sense. This would mean no seasons. Regions would be locked into a single climate year. The areas directly under the sun's path would experience a relentless, scorching summer that never ends. The regions at the edges would be trapped in a permanent, bitter winter. Agriculture would be devastated. Farmers rely on the predictable cycle of seasons to plant and harvest crops. Without seasons, growing food for a global population would become an impossible challenge. The very foundation of our food supply would crumble. And what about the weather? Earth's weather systems are incredibly complex, driven by solar energy, the rotation of the planet, and the distribution of oceans and land. A key factor is the Coriolis effect, a phenomenon caused by the Earth's rotation that deflects moving objects, including wind and water currents. This is what gives hurricanes their spin, and creates the massive global wind patterns like trade winds and jet streams. On a flat, non-rotating Earth, the Coriolis effect would not exist. Wind would blow in straight lines from high pressure to low pressure areas. This might sound simpler, but the results would be chaotic. We wouldn't have the large, organized storm systems we see today. Instead, weather could become brutally extreme and unpredictable. Some areas might be battered by constant, powerful winds blowing in one direction, while others might experience permanent droughts with no wind to bring in moisture. The intricate dance of weather patterns that distributes heat and water around our globe would stop, leading to a world of extreme, static climates. Think about how we travel and communicate. Modern aviation is built on the understanding that the Earth is a sphere. Pilots fly along great circle routes, the shortest distance between 2 points on a globe, to save time and fuel. On a flat Earth, these routes make no sense. A flight from Los Angeles to Paris, for example, would be a much longer, straight-line journey across a flat map. All of our navigation systems would be useless. And speaking of navigation, what about GPS? The global positioning system relies on a network of dozens of satellites orbiting the Earth. These satellites stay in orbit because of the balance between their speed and Earth. Gravitational pull on a curved surface. On a flat Earth, orbits as we know them are impossible. Satellites would either crash back down or fly off into space. This means no GPS, no satellite televisión, no reliable weather forecasting, and a massive disruption to global communication and the internet. The interconnected world we live in would fall apart. Finally, let's look up at the sky. Our understanding of the cosmos is based on observations made from a spherical planet. From different points on Earth, we see different constellations. A sailor using the North Star to navigate knows it appears lower in the sky as they travel south, eventually disappearing below the horizon, something that can only happen on a curved surface. Lunar and solar eclipses, where the Earth's or moon's shadow is cast, show a distinct circular shadow, further proof of their spherical shapes. On a flat Earth, none of this would make sense. Everyone, everywhere, would see the exact same stars every night. Eclipses would be impossible to explain with our current models. All of modern astronomy, from understanding planetary orbits to exploring distant galaxies with telescopes, would be fundamentally wrong. Our entire scientific worldview would collapse. So, what if the Earth was flat? It would be a world where gravity tries to pull you sideways, where a single ocean sits in the middle of a desert world, where there are no seasons, no sunrises, and no satellites. It's a world where our technology, our climate, our food supply, and our very understanding of the universe would break down. The simple fact is, a flat Earth could not support life as we know it. The evidence for a round Earth isn't just a matter of opinion. It's woven into the fabric of our daily lives. From the weather report we check in the morning to the GPS that guides us home. Thinking about a flat Earth is a fun exercise, but it also shows us just how perfectly our round world is designed to support the incredible, complex web of life we see all around us. Thanks for joining me on this thought experiment. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more explorations into the world of what if. See you next time.